Time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join News Director Paul David and News Editor Philip Catafamo as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics in Yavapai County that affect all our lives. And now here's today's Countywide.
Welcome back to another episode of Countywide. I'm your host, Philip Catafamo. I'd like to thank you for joining me. On today's show, we are talking about the 2021 to 2022 school year, and my guest in studio today is Mingus Union High School District Superintendent Mike Westcott. Mr. Westcott, welcome back in studio. Always great talking with you, Philip. Well, we're happy to have you back. Not too long ago, we were talking about the budget override continuation. That voting is wrapping up, so we'll have results on that very, very soon. Very exciting. So thought we'd take this opportunity to just kind of talk about the school year in general. Obviously, 2020 was a nightmare for everyone on so many different fronts, but we all, for the most part, made it through, and some positive stuff have come out of it somehow, which we will talk about. But I just want to ask in general, how is the school year going so far? Just got done with fall break. We're getting close to potentially the start of Thanksgiving break here very soon, just a couple weeks away. But how's the school year going just in general?
It's going well, I would say, considering the challenges. You know, going into the start of the semester in August, we knew we were still dealing with the pandemic, obviously, and continue to. That led to a little bit of uncertainty. What are we going to see in terms of student numbers in person? What are we going to see in terms of student numbers online? We're not funded as fully when they're online. And so if you get a large contingent there, even if your total enrollment is up, it lowers your funding. As it turned out, we started school with one of the highest enrollments, perhaps the highest enrollment the district has ever seen, with a very large freshman contingent. So we were fully staffed to start the school year based on pre-registration numbers, which give us a good estimate. But we started out the year kind of bursting at the seams, had some teachers step up and take on some extra sections, a lot of class coverage, some substitute teacher challenges, county-wide, statewide, nationwide, really. Yeah, which we'll talk about. So that was a challenge at the beginning, but we got through that kind of first 10-day period where you see a little bit of enrollment stability. Now we passed day 40. We have some good estimates as to what our numbers will look like with respect to funding from the state. And we continue to be up relative to our estimates, up relative to the last couple of years, which we're really happy with. Have about 80 to 100 students online, roughly. Our academies functioning fully for credit recovery. As you well know, athletics are in full swing. It's feeling much more like a normal school year, even though we are still dealing with the pandemic and, you know, adherence to some of the guidance we've been given by the county with respect to quarantining. That's ongoing, dealing with those challenges. But everybody's stepped up. I mean, down the line, from maintenance to custodial to our nursing staff to our teaching staff, everybody has stepped up to the challenge and still learning. You know, we're still learning how to deal with it because it's not quite what it looked like last year. It's different. Well, right. You and I got a chance to talk a little bit before the show just about that enrollment in general. And while we were headed to a football game last month, I ran into the head custodian at Mingus Union High School. I know him as Jim. I don't know what Jim's last name is, but Jim's a great guy. And he was telling me about that new class of freshmen that came through. Yeah. And then you and I got to talk a little bit more about the numbers. You said almost 400 kids, just about 400 kids freshmen coming in. Yeah. That's a huge freshman class. Yeah, we think probably the biggest ever. And, you know, freshman numbers tend to maintain their status relatively high throughout a school year. You'll see seniors graduate early, and you'll maybe see some move off to work in the upper class ranks, but those lower levels tend to stay through the school year. So that class size is maintained at a pretty high number. Yeah. We had well over 1,300 enrolled in that first week or so of school, and like I said, have maintained our numbers relatively highly. So that's been a challenge, but a pleasant one. Well, and that helps out so many programs on campus. I know not every kid is going to compete in sports or do extracurriculars, of course, but you know, even if at 400 you can take about
10% or maybe even 20% of those kids and disperse them amongst your athletics, your extracurricular programs, I mean, that just drums up more excitement, gets you more kids participating in those, and just more kids on campus is great. I know, and we'll talk a little bit about the online aspect to it as well, but it's nice to see more kids back on campus. You and I were talking, last year was about 600 so kids on campus. This year it's up, would you say 1,400 about, or maybe I'm a little over-exaggerating.
On campus on a daily basis, considering absences, illness, the normal, we probably have 1,200 to 1,220 walking around campus on a daily basis. Virtually double what we had when we returned to in-person learning last year. Now, of course, we still had that additional 400 to 500 students, but they had remained online, given that opportunity to do so. So that number's dropped to roughly 100. So we've got, somewhere around 1,200 kids on campus on a daily basis, which, again, it's great. It looks like it's supposed to look. Yeah. It feels like it's supposed to feel, on a high school campus. And you're right. A lot of kids last year missed the opportunity for many of those extracurriculars. Seasons were canceled. Seasons were cut short. We've been able to maintain, through the challenges of the pandemic, a high level of participation in those co-curricular and extracurriculars. Speaking of extracurricular, we've added a gaming,
esports,
online esports. Yes. So we're honestly trying to, give kids what they want in terms of participation, the activities they desire, because let's face it, those help keep them where we want them, and that's in school.
Yeah, and esports are a completely new thing, of course. I know Prescott High School has one, and I've heard that Bradshaw might be having one too. There's a couple of schools, it seems like it's starting to formulate a little bit more here. We got just a couple minutes before the end of this first segment. I wanted to kind of move away from pandemic stuff, but I'm just curious, anything from last year in terms of, the way you guys conducted business or the way classrooms are ran, anything from last year that has transitioned to this year in the curriculum? Anything that you guys kind of learned that you're now putting into practice? Any examples of that?
Well, we learned a lot about connectivity or lack of on the part of our student bodies. We learned where students can and can't access the internet. Surprising that, in some cases, that just doesn't exist. We were able to provide hotspots, and still are. So kids have internet. They let us know if they need support at home for internet, because teachers have continued Google Classroom as a learning platform online as a way to keep kids up to speed if they're out, as a way to provide supplementation even if they're in person. We've maintained that this year. That grew out of last year's response to the pandemic. But to have a Google Classroom environment going online, kids have to have online access. So we've continued to provide that. There's been a lot of carryover and a lot of talk about hybrid learning and what that might look like in the future as well.
Right, and again, more conversations off air, but again, there's possibly some discussion about incorporating the online aspect into curriculum, not anytime soon, but in the somewhat near future.
Right.
About potentially integrating the online aspect with your sort of usual on-campus activities. But it's exciting. You say that kids can catch up if they get sick and stuff. I remember staying home when I was sick. That was video games and chilling out on the couch or watching Game Show Network. But now you got to log into your classroom and do your homework. So sick days, there may not be as many sick days as they used to be. But
that's right.
Of course, it's great the kids aren't falling behind, because that was obviously one of the issues. If you stayed home, you had to go ask for catch-up work, which I always hated.
Absolutely.
But
and it's an example of how educators do this. It's a way to find learning opportunity amidst the worst difficult times.
Right, and I would much rather be caught up and at home than be behind and at home. So it's great, and I've talked about it many times with I don't know how many guests that I'd love to see more internet incorporated into high schools, because you do it in college. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Mingus Union High School District Superintendent Mike Westcott right here on Countywide. Stay with us.
Who doesn't dream of home improvements? Perhaps your kitchen, the real living room. Maybe the bathroom, where you bookend your day. Langstrand Contracting is your one-stop shop from tear down to finishing touches. With 35 years of experience, Chris and his team will work with you to match your family's style and budget. Call Langstrand Contracting today for guidance in bringing your vision to life.
Award-winning Soundbites Grill is an entertainment restaurant located in Uptown Sedona at the Hyatt Pinion Point Resort. Open for lunch and dinner, featuring fresh fish, all-natural hand-cut beef, even a full vegan menu. Family-friendly, open 11:30 to 9, late dining on Friday and Saturday. Soundbites Grill has some of the best views of the Sedona Red Rocks. Offers world-class entertainment, food, fun, and music.
Your carpet is the largest air filter in your home, trapping dust, dirt, and germs from the air that your family members breathe, even the furriest ones.
That's why it's important to keep your carpet and tile clean and hygienic with regular cleanings by ZeroRez. ZeroRez uses state-of-the-art technology and ZR water, not soap or harsh chemicals, so zero residue is left on your home surfaces.
Schedule your appointment today because a clean home is a healthy home. Visit ZeroResNorthernArizona.com.
The mouth is the gateway to the digestive system. Studies indicate a correlation between oral health and full body health. Regular cleanings and checkups can help protect you. New patients are welcome at Arizona Smile Designers in Cottonwood. There's a full smile worth of services all offered under one roof. Whitening and cosmetic to implants and smile reconstruction. Find out more or request an appointment online at azsmiledesigners.com.
I want to welcome you back here to Countywide. I'm your host, Philip Catafamo. On today's show, we are talking with Mingus Union High School District Superintendent Mike Westcott, and we are talking about the school year this year, 2021 to 2022. Enrollment is up at Mingus Union High School. Big freshman class welcomed in this year. School year is going great so far, as to what Mr. Westcott has been saying, of course. You know, we're rolling along here. Obviously, the pandemic is still somewhat going on, but it's nice to know that kids are getting an opportunity to continue their education, whether it is on campus or online, and potentially that might be integrated very soon, just to give you a summary of the first segment. But here in the second segment, there was a stakeholder survey that was conducted. You've got some results about that. I'd love to have you dive into that whenever you'd like.
Yeah, we did a stakeholder survey, community members, staff, anybody really willing to follow the SurveyMonkey link and participate, with respect to how we spend and plan for spending some of the federal funds that are coming our way, some of the COVID relief funds that folks have heard about. So virtually all school districts across the country have received some allowance of funds via their state education agencies through the feds. Some states have determined what those funds would be in a different manner, so you'll see different numbers and amounts. All of those funds will end in 2024. At about this time, in 2024, that funding will have ended. They're one-time funds then, in effect. So we have to be very thoughtful about how we spend those funds and careful that we don't tie them to expenditures that are ongoing and can't be supported by our baseline budget. But that community and stakeholder survey addressed 6 or 7 different areas, and stakeholders had choices under each area, whether it was instructional support or facilities or managing social emotional learning and supports. And the results, out of the results, we learned that there's a large level of support for about 5 or 6 different strategies that we're going to gear that federal spending towards. One of those, it was after school intersession and summer session learning and instruction, not only to catch kids up, but to potentially put them ahead. To that end, right now, here we are in the midst of our fall break, we've got about 50 students doing an intersession academic learning that they chose to do. And we're planning this summer to even think a little bit outside the box and offer some maybe non-traditional summer course offerings, more broad across the curriculum than what we might typically do, just again for a chance for kids to catch up or to get ahead and provide those opportunities, and that would largely be supported by those federal funds as well. There was a lot of support for subject matter interventionists, so perhaps a subject matter expert in math, in science, in English, in areas where they could not only work with students but with teachers in terms of technology, online support, perhaps some of that hybrid online learning.
Yes.
Chromebooks. There was support for technology, and we're now well beyond a 1-to-1 Chromebook to student ratio at Mingus. Improving our school website and communication tools. We're looking at several new communication tools related to just getting information out there to parents and families and doing that in a more efficient manner. A lot of support in the survey for school counseling and social emotional support. This year is our first year in many that we've got 4 dedicated counselors plus counseling supervisory staff and support staff, but we have a grade level school counselor for each grade 9, 10, 11, 12. First time in years we've had that, and it's reaping huge benefits already. Those counselors will follow that grade level cohort through their graduation year from freshman through 12.
Wow.
And that's going just wonderfully this year.
Well, what a huge resource that is to have.
Oh, I mean, it's incredible.
Obviously, last year was a complete nightmare in terms of, just the year in general, and now coming back here into 2021. I mean, obviously, different challenges. Kids are back on campus, and they've been away from each other for a little while. And in need, yes, very much so.
And so, the survey, though it suggested ways to earmark those federal funds, it also confirmed some of what we've already done, because there was support for increased counseling staff and social emotional support systems in the survey. We had already implemented some of that and are beefing up even more now what we're doing for social emotional support for students as well.
And that's huge, obviously, in high school. I mean,
it is.
Just kind of reminiscing about just what a nightmare of a time that is. And I keep saying that word nightmare, but genuinely, it's such a weird time in life when you're in high school, especially going from middle school to high school, and all the challenges that happen with that, and everybody's everybody and everything seems to be completely different. But it's great that these kids are getting the support they need, especially during this particular time. The district was awarded some of those funds you talked about, nearly $1.7 million in elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds. That money has to be spent, like you mentioned before. This particular one has a deadline of September 2024. You mentioned there might be potential additional funding coming along. You already said that. But has this money been utilized yet? And if so, where has it been utilized?
That segment is still being held. In fact, we'll be applying and submitting our plan for expending that segment based on the survey. The first 2 chunks of federal funds have largely been spent, and those bring that total federal funding up close to the $3 million mark by 2024. So the first couple of phases have largely been spent and primarily went towards instructional support for online learning, Chromebooks, hotspots, laptops, teacher training, Google Classroom setup. So a lot of that went to directly address our immediate response to the pandemic last year. And the funding, the beginning sort of phases of that federal funding started, thankfully, early to mid-pandemic last year. So a lot of those initial first couple phases of funding have been spent. A lot of technology upgrades. We're working on an upgrade now in every single classroom to a smart TV monitor, which will facilitate the recording of lessons, the ability to broadcast lessons real time and post after the fact on Google Classroom. That occupied a large portion of that funding and continues to as well.
I cannot tell you how many times I would sit in a classroom lecture and get to the homework aspect, and everything that I was told goes right out of my head. And I would sit there trying to get the homework done, and my mom or dad would go, okay, well, what did the teacher say? And I was like, I don't remember. It was at 10 o'clock this morning that I was told how to solve this problem. But that's great. I mean, we're in a technology age now, as you and I are both very, very aware. These kids have access to technology that even myself didn't have when I was in high school. And I wasn't in high school very long ago. But things have changed, and I love the incorporation more of, almost like a college style of learning. Like you said, where you've got that aspect to not only go to school on campus, but also potentially go online, to have your lessons recorded potentially, where you could go back and go, okay, what did Mr. Westcott say again about this? Okay, all right, okay, now I've got it. It provides so much more opportunity, so much more assistance to kids who may be going home to an empty house just because parents are working a little later. My parents worked late. It just provides so much more support for a very weird time in education right now, with everything going on outside of technology, of course. But it's just nice to see that the support's there. You know, you talked about the counselors. Obviously, the technology here is being supported as well. So a lot of support here from me to you. Again, if you want more information about the district in general, mingusunion.com is the website. If you want to give them a call, 928-634-8640 is the phone number if you have any more information. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Mingus Union High School District Superintendent Mike Westcott right here on Countywide. Stay with us.
Terrifying jobs. Bull Rider, take 2. Cliff, this seems like a really terrifying job. Why do you do it?
I love protecting the bull riders when they get bucked up.
How big are these bulls?
12 to 2,200 pounds of pure muscle.
You're not cowed by any of this, obviously. Is there anything that scares you?
Yeah, distracted drivers terrify me.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
The EPA says C&B Construction ranks in the top 1% nationally. C&B Construction invites you to see what energy efficiency and indoor air quality can be. We have won another Department of Energy Innovation Award, and C&B Construction is the only contractor in the country to win 6 consecutive EPA Indoor Air Plus awards. Experience our zero-energy, move-in ready homes at Crossroads at Mingus.
C&B Construction, locally respected, nationally recognized. Find out more at candbhomes.com.
Award-winning Soundbites Grill is an entertainment restaurant located in uptown Sedona at the Hyatt Pinion Point Resort. Open for lunch and dinner, featuring fresh fish, all-natural hand-cut beef, even a full vegan menu. Family-friendly, open 11:30 to 9, late dining on Friday and Saturday. Soundbites Grill has some of the best views of the Sedona Red Rocks. Offers world-class entertainment, food, fun, and music.
I want to welcome you back here to Countywide. On today's show, we are speaking with Mingus Union High School District Superintendent Mike Westcott about the school year so far. We've got just a couple minutes, so I just want to give you an opportunity to just anything else you want to get out about the school year, Mr. Westcott, you go right ahead.
One more item or two from the Stakeholder Survey that was identified as real critical for our stakeholders. HVAC, ventilation, room air purification, early federal funds that we spoke about earlier, a lot of those went towards room air purifiers. We purchased upwards of 100 of those units. They're now present all over campus and have been for a good 7-8 months and running 24/7. We think of in a real key mitigation strategy. School security was an important item for stakeholders. We are doing a threat assessment right now. We're in the midst of one. To some extent in response to the survey, we've added security staff, and we're adding an additional perhaps 1.5 more positions in terms of security in an attempt to respond to some of the important survey items prior to even receiving that final phase of federal funds, because we want to respond quickly to those stakeholders' interests. I wanted to add as well, just again, kudos to all of our staff. Nurse Jen Dirksen, who's coped wonderfully with the pandemic and continues to do so. All of our teaching staff, support staff, administration, board, community support, which we really appreciate as well. Our cafe staff, we've been providing free meals to all students. From the end of last year, it continues that program, federal authorization for that to continue. We've had a large participation in the cafeteria by our students, and again, free meals for all students. We anticipate that running through the school year, and that's both breakfast, a last chance breakfast, which comes about mid-morning, short little period, and then of course lunch. So again, just really appreciate the ability of our staff to step up, and our students as well, amidst the challenges we've had.
Again, if you want more information about the district in general, mingusunion.com is the website. 928-634-8640 is the phone number. Mr. Westcott, as usual, always happy to have you come in and talk to us about literally anything.
Yeah.
Happy to hear that things are on the upswing at Mingus Union High School. Very very exciting time right now amongst everything else that's going on. But again, MingusUnionHighSchool.com is the website. 928-634-8640 is the phone number. That is going to do it for this episode of Countywide. I'm your host, Philip Catafamo, wishing you a great rest of your week, and we'll see you again next time.